Hello and welcome to this week's 8-Bit Debaters. My name's Rob, and this week we're doing something a little bit different, mainly because we just didn't want to have a huge argument this week, and mainly because we didn't have enough people to do it.
The cracks are already there.
So what we thought we would take the time to do, seeing as how we've done 20 of these so far, we're going to go back through some of our previous questions, talk about whether we made the right answer, mainly due to the fact that we have yet to write down all the questions we've done, and maybe we should do that. So, we have with us the beautiful Paddy. I say hi.
Hello.
Paddy. Ooh, and we have Alistair as well. Hey, Al, how's it going?
I feel this one's going to get very angry at me. Just a feeling.
Just a feeling. So, we've had 20 of these debates so far, and if you don't know, and this is the first time you've seen us, head back and see one of them to see what we're talking about. We
go and watch all 20 right now, then you can come back and watch this video.
You can, or just watch one to see what you think. But we argue each week about something very pointless or probably something really important. Who cares? And we normally argue between three people and choose which one is the best argument. And we thought would go through. So the first question that we asked, the very first episode way back in the dawn of time, was what is the best console generation? So if you guys remember, we actually, I think this was one where me, Alistair, and I can't remember, John, were debating, and we had the winning answer was the PS3/Xbox 360 generation, which is the 7th generation. But also other answers we had was the GameCube PS2 from Al, which was the 6th generation, and a bit of a weird answer we had was the Steam Link from John.
I mean, John always had to go for a PC.
I don't think John fully understood the term generation until we explained it afterwards.
I think he just wanted to
until it was too late.
It's the first episode, guys. So how do you feel about that answer? Do you think that was quite a fair ruling?
Yeah, it feels right. I think.
Yeah,
no?
It was a good generation, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think the only reason I didn't pick it was because you got there first. I think that's what happened a lot with our answers.
If you think of the games that come out on that gen, and I think one of the points even I made during that argument was like, if you weigh the games out that come out right at the start of that generation, and then I had a look at the games right at the end of it, the leap was much huger than it was in any other generation, I think.
Yeah, and it set out like a huge kind of almost the beginning of a lot of like big IPs coming out. And
also it was a real birth of online gaming as well. Yeah. I know it was obviously being done a lot in the PC days before the launch of the 360 and the PS3, and it had been toyed around with in the previous generation, because I know PS2 you could buy a broadband thing for it, and I know the Dreamcast you could plug it in, and there was a few online bits and pieces, but really online gaming started to come into its own with Xbox Live or the 360, really, wasn't it? That's the one that really
that was the big starter.
That was the money spinner.
Do you think that the current generation is going to one day be seen? Do you think if we revisited this in 3 years' time, when we've got PS5s,
well, I mean,
a lot of
the current generation we're playing on, like the games we're playing on, came out in the last generation. I mean, from GTA 5. Still one of the biggest games of this generation.
Yeah, GTA 5 I just saw was the best-selling game on PlayStation, I think, store in July.
I think
came out in
this generation genuinely has been quite a troubled one. I know there's always been a bit of controversy around games here and there and how they're structured and how they're formatted, and it was definitely creeping in the Xbox 360 era. But like, there seems to be a lot more coverage and a lot more conversation. I don't know whether that's just because we're spread as a society to be able to talk about things like on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, or whether it's a fact that in general, publishers are pushing really hard for every penny at the minute, and it's really having an impact on the industry. And I can see at the minute the industry itself is taking kind of a left turn a bit, and I think there's a lot of bad press that obviously like EA got last year, and that's really starting to curb that trend.
Yeah, well,
but at the same time, I think this will be known as a generation of the loot box.
Yeah, it's like kind of caught in two minds. It's like, well, we've got powerful machines, like here's the 4K that we can now do with it, but it's not quite like made a step up like the 7th generation did. So like, it would have stepped up with VR, but that's kind of still in the works, and maybe will be perfected by the next generation or something, or like be a mainstay. So it's kind of like caught in two minds.
When you look at the generational jumps beforehand, like the graphical jumps made generation to generation were huge. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a clear difference between a SNES and a PlayStation 1. There's a difference between a PlayStation 1 and a PlayStation 2. It's very clear. You could tell just by looking at a game whether it was, where it was from. I think the jump from the previous gen to this gen was like the smallest jump that we've ever had, just because how much more powerful.
Yeah, can they get? Yeah. And I think the next jump will be also, it'd be like, well, these systems sort of emulate 4K, but now we have real 4K. It's like, well,
yeah,
how much further can we go?
We agree then. Yeah, we agree that we chose the right answer there.
Yeah, definitely.
Even now,
even me.
Even now. So next we asked what was the best open world in video or games, where we chose the winning answer as Horizon Zero Dawn, which I believe was argued by Paddy. We also had the losing answers were Fallout 4 and Breath of the Wild. I remember roughly sort of Fallout being quite pushed out there, going, no, you know what, as much as Fallout as a game has...
The main argument against it was too brown.
It is brown.
And it's a good argument.
It's a post-apocalyptic world.
Argument.
It's a post-apocalyptic world. The green is dead.
Well, Horizon Zero Dawn is a post-apocalyptic world.
But it's very green and lush.
Yeah, but like it's regrowing. Fallout 4 was like
The Last of Us as well. You think of that, that's a post, and it's not necessarily completely green and lush. I know it's got a lot of grey from that, but it still manages to showcase like a very kind of well thought out, well handcrafted world. Fallout 4 was just a bit like, oh, it's another building. There's no amazing locations.
I remember this one coming down between Horizon Zero Dawn, I think, and Breath of the Wild. Right? I can't remember. I mean, because you judged this one, didn't you, Rob? I think
I did judge this one. And eventually went with Paddy, and I think Breath of the Wild. We just argued that I don't know. I can't remember. Really.
Yeah, I think we argued it was more like a copy and paste job, kind of like the same, like the bits that would get up, like you would see would happen somewhere else at the exact same time, and it was like it wasn't quite an. I think that was the main argument. It wasn't like an individual. Like each part moved on its own. It was like you could see the same scene somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, because
they both sort of push open worlds, kind of maybe further, or maybe not further, but in different directions to where they've been before. Yeah. Zelda with like the freedom, and I think Horizon with the fidelity, and I think that was maybe what sort of skewed it towards Horizon. Was that like we've seen lots of great open worlds, and you can do lots of cool stuff, but this one was like it felt incredibly alive and different and vibrant.
Yeah,
it's a good game.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that that's the right answer.
I think that was pretty fair. So this one was a bit of a weird one where we had what was the best strategy video game of all time.
This one's genius. I'm really sorry I wasn't on it.
The winning answer was from Geordie, and he gave the answer of a chess.
I'm still pissed off about that one.
And the losing answers were XCOM 2 and StarCraft. And yeah, from what I also judge that one. I always remember that argument because no one give me a compelling reason why chess is not the best video game, best strategy video game of all time. As much as I didn't want to give it just to, I think eventually, because the only one thing we tried to tie Geordie down on is he didn't tell us which version of chess. Because obviously on the show we like to say, as opposed to saying, oh, I think it's the Zelda series, you like to try and get, but which one is it? Which one are you trying to say? But so I think we went for chess for Windows eventually. But yeah, there was nothing there. You guys had XCOM and StarCraft. You could have talked about like the depth of it and all that, and you never went near it.
But we spent most of our time trying to figure out why chess was a viable option, and
because it's a video game based on strategy.
Yeah, it's literally like the strategy game. Like, that's what it.
Yeah, chess.
Yeah, it's like the epitome of strategy games.
I
would have personally had a go for its turn-based mechanics. I think chess looks would be much more fun in real time.
In an FPS.
Personally, but there you go. All right, so after that we went on. Oh, actually, do we agree what about chess? Do we agree that chess is actually the best strategy video game of all time?
No, I don't. I don't agree. It's the best, but out of the three, it was the best argued.
I mean, it was the best argued on the day, but I'd probably say out of those ones, I'd probably say StarCraft is probably one of the best strategy games of all times. If not, go towards like a Total War or something like that. One of those really ones that's really in depth.
I'd have to go for an RTS probably. I mean, XCOM I did enjoy, and that was my answer. But I think
XCOM 2. Yeah, I think that's a good strong one. That definitely should have been an argument. You just should have done better with it. That's all I'm saying.
Classic.
So after that, we had what was the best video game of the 90s. So this one we had a guest, which was Scouse Mouse. He joined us for that one. The winner was myself with the Ocarina of Time. I said it was the best game of the 90s. Scouse Mouse went for Final Fantasy VII, and I believe we had a Dylan who went for Mario 64. So
this one you had it easy because I was judging, and if anyone says Ocarina of Time, I'm like, ooh, Ocarina of Time.
I
like that
game. The other two games.
See, inside I wanted to choose Shenmue, but I knew I'd find it hard to argue it. I knew it would be a hard argue to sell, and I knew Ocarina of Time. I wasn't necessarily trying to pander to Paddy, but I was more just trying to, choose a game that I know I'd be able to give it a good argument.
Yeah.
Personally, my personal opinion, the best game of the 90s is Shenmue. But
the funny thing is, I think if you'd streamed Shenmue before this debate, because obviously you streamed Shenmue 1 and 2, I would have been more inclined to at least like have it would have had a much fairer shot. Otherwise, because I'm just like, I don't know this game. What the hell's this game? But
it could have been the best thing in the world.
Having seen it, like
firsthand.
Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, well, I think
it's sort of hard to argue, though, isn't it?
Yeah, they're three very strong games, and like they deserve to be argued for the best game of the 90s. I mean, I guess like for some reason that question is very much up to sort of personal preference. There's no one clear outstanding in the 90s. Everyone will have their own game because of what they played.
I think as well, when you got a question that broad, there is no clear winner, is there?
Yeah.
It's so broad. I mean, you've got things like a Mario World and all the games, from the generation prior that weren't even brought into it. You know what I mean? Yeah. A GoldenEye, so many instant amazing
and how do you
games and
how do you even
say
judge it?
Argue that one's better than the other.
Yeah, exactly. And like, do you go for which one had the most enduring legacy? Which one was great then?
Are we exposing the fundamental flaw in our show here?
I think so.
It adds a challenge.
Everything we say is irrelevant.
You pick three random, completely different games, and you just try and argue how yours is better, yet no way in any way comparable to any of the other games.
So do we agree, though, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is probably the best game of the 90s?
I would say so.
Yeah.
A lot of people would probably argue Final Fantasy VII.
Okay, so after that we had what is the best game of the last decade. The winner was John with
Why did you say it so weirdly?
Counter-Strike.
Decade.
I don't know.
It's the decade.
It's because I'm from a certain part of the country, innit? So we had John winning with the answer Counter-Strike. We also had losing answers, which was World of Warcraft and Wii Sports. So it's the first time we had World of Warcraft put in, to which now we know how to argue against World of Warcraft, and that's its pricing.
I got destroyed.
You got destroyed for bringing in World of Warcraft because that pricing structure is just. I think comparing it to modern day standards, it's ludicrous.
Yeah, that. Honestly, when I picked it, I didn't think of that at all.
No,
and as soon as it was brought up, I just sort of I put myself down. I was like, "That's I'm out."
And Paddy give it a fair go. I think it was you, Paddy, with Wii Sports. That sounds like a very you answer.
I'm assuming it was Paddy.
I tried.
It was Paddy. So yeah. I mean, to be fair, I probably wouldn't have chose any three of those games as the best game of the decade.
No, I don't think we nailed it down.
No, I think maybe like
a Halo could have been in there.
Yeah, ones like that. You've got a lot of early 360, a lot of sort of early to mid generation 360 games in there that I think would give those three games a run for the money.
I mean,
when did Arkham Asylum come out?
I think it was after that.
Was it after? Yeah, I can't quite remember.
I think you definitely have one, if not two, Uncharted games in that time.
Yeah,
but I think
difficult. I think for them to judge them as like best games of a decade. But definitely up there.
You've got 10 years of games covering. Like, it's hard enough to pick like the best of the last year or something because there's just so many that have come out.
To be honest, it's a really weird selection.
Yeah.
Like it really is a weird selection.
I think the one that would have been a very good argument, although it would make a few people groan because of just how the franchise is in a minute. But if you said a Modern Warfare, that would have been
that probably. I mean, that's one of the most important video games ever, isn't it? I mean, for where we are now, anyway.
Yeah, these decade ones are like it's so hard to pick the right choice, and I know like definitely this one we didn't have the right answer up there, but I couldn't tell you what it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would, and I mean, I'm talking from a bit of bias here for I've never really been into PC gaming, and you're looking at two real big PC games here.
I was in
Wii Sports, you know what I mean? It's a bit like
in that last decade, like in the 2010, I was heavily into both Counter-Strike and World of Warcraft. It's like I kind of covered. Yeah, I was like that. So I covered a lot of the both, and yeah.
So do we all agree that was the wrong answer?
Yeah, I think they're all the
wrong
three.
answer. Bloody hell, John. Bloody hell, John. Okay, so what is the best video game from this a decade so far? It seemed like that we went through some sort of theme, like we were running short of ideas by the time we got to our sixth, but that's good. So the winning answer for that one was Skyrim. So that's any game that's come out between 2010 and obviously up until now. Losing answers, we've had Red Dead, which I think was a very valiant answer from Geordie, I believe, that you gave that one. And we had a typical John coming in with a Candy Crush, a saga. I think he tried to argue that was the best video game.
He wanted to throw
He went from the sales.
Yeah.
He went from the sales. He just tried to
money.
pitch sales and say actually amount of money make is equal to how good it is, which we obviously know is not true because FIFA makes much more money than quite a lot of games such as I don't know.
I think
Senua
it's important to clarify. Like a lot of people go, "Where's GTA 5 in this one?" Which arguably is one of the best games of of this decade.
That is true. That could have been a bit.
I think we purposely didn't choose it because Red Dead came in quite early and we didn't want to have two games at the same.
Someone picked Red Dead and it was a bit like, well, GTA versus Red Dead. It's not much of an argument to be had there. It's going to be
arguing the exact same thing, just a different.
You're arguing what do you prefer, cowboys or cars? You know what I mean? It's like, which one do you prefer? It's just a bit like, well, they're effectively very similar games in just very different settings. You know what I mean? That pulls them far enough apart.
I'd probably say GTA 5 is the best game of this decade.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably. I mean, for me, maybe The Witcher 3. I'd probably say. Obviously, that's just from my own personal bias. Or maybe Yakuza 0 now. Now I've played that. Those have been my two choices for so far. But obviously, Paddy, from your point, you've got all sorts there, and you've got a God of War.
Yeah, God of War, Last of Us, basically anything
anything that's PS4.
Yeah, I mean, it is really difficult. Like again, it's like so many of these questions. It's what has had the biggest impact? I mean, GTA 5 has probably had the biggest impact on gaming. If you think of like all these games as a service, like they sort of did it without even thinking about it.
I did it well, didn't really get any flack for it.
Yeah, exactly. They just snuck it out, and it's still
they're still
selling them copies of the game.
Yeah. Okay, so after that, then, actually, are we in agreement then? Because I don't think we are.
Skyrim, I don't know.
I think out of the three, Skyrim was the right choice.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, personally, out of the three, if you go on a personal basis, I'd probably say Red Dead. But then again, I haven't played a huge amount of Skyrim, so that's probably why I'd lean more towards that on a personal basis. But obviously, out of those three, if you feel that Skyrim's probably better than Red Dead, then fair dues. So after that we went to which video game deserves a HD remaster, which was quite a fun question. The winner of that was me actually, and that was with True Crime Streets of LA, which I'm not sure if anyone remembers that PS2 game.
My favourite thing about this one was it made me completely remember a game I'd forgotten. Like I was like, oh my god, I played the shit out of that game and I really liked it. So,
and it made me even more confused about how little I know.
And then the two losing answers were a GoldenEye from Al, and we had Star Wars Shadow of the Empire from Geordie. GoldenEye, I think, was a very good attempt. I think the one falling grace it already had one.
I tried to do a bit of research and it didn't come up, and then when you guys are like, oh no, it has one, and I was like, very specifically.
I think if the question was which video game would make the best HD remaster, I think GoldenEye probably would have been a much better argument, because then you're not saying, well, it doesn't, but when you go about when you use the word it deserves, you're like, well, it deserved to have one when it's already had one? You know what I mean?
To have another one?
And then Geordie argued Star Wars Shadow of the Empire, which I don't know if you guys know much about. So. I actually knew about that game, and it was fucking awful. I don't know why I chose it, and we instantly ripped the shit out of it. So, I think I won by a default, really, more than anything else. More than, I mean, I'm quite pleased with that choice. Actually, I think it would make a great HD remaster. I think it would fit in quite well into an area that's proven and tested. People like these these sandbox city games, and playing on the other side of GTA, where GTA you're playing as a criminal. It's nice, just like we could in Sleeping Dogs, to play on the other side where you play as the law, choose to be a good cop or a bad cop. It all has all those little things that people I think would still enjoy.
Yeah, I think I would have gone with Bully. If I was
yeah.
debating that one, not judging it, I think.
Yeah, HD remaster. Yeah, that would look. If they did a full, if we're talking about like the Crash,
that
Crash
Bandicoot
Bandicoot sort of remaster where they rebuild the game from the ground up rather than just brush it up. But yeah, are we agreeing that it's probably fair winner for the
three,
argument?
Yeah, definitely.
But probably not probably if people were to give it some serious thought, there'll probably be a lot more better ones actually that you can think of. Okay, so this one was a bit of a hard one, which I didn't think would be that hard when we first thought it up. Was what was the best video game with no violence? It comes very hard. Yeah, it's one of those things where when you start thinking about it, lot of games have every game is violence. Even like Mario jumps on the top of turtles and stuff. It's still some form of violence. I like Minecraft, all those ones that you do.
Mario Kart technically.
I like associate. Yeah. Think, this isn't a violent game. It actually is, when you actually think about it. So the answer we eventually went as the winning answer, which I believe was from Paddy, was the answer of a Tetris.
To go to leave out of Geordie's book there.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the other two answers we had losing were Rhyme and Firewatch. Firewatch questionably had a bit of violence. There was one moment where I believe you get hit.
That's what I based my argument against.
Yeah. I just got really angry the way that game ends.
Yeah, that was
the end of that game is shit. I'm sorry. I think there's people who really enjoy a Firewatch, and I'm definitely one of those people who's like, it's a walking simulator. I can't play a walking simulator. It's nothing about that at all. It was I still really enjoyed what they did up until the end of it.
I loved it for 98% of the game, and I'm like, what the fuck is this nonsense?
It's just a bit like, it'd be nice to see something at the end of it. You know what I mean? Something happen, some sort of event. It doesn't have to be like over. I'm not expecting a huge action set piece, but just to walk into a cave and see
something that makes sense.
What was it?
Delilah,
it's just a bit like, okay,
something like that. I can't remember her name.
A spoiler one. I mean,
everybody does.
So,
and Al, have you now that you've actually played Rhyme? Do you think you'd have a better chance of debating it?
Are you on that?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, like, I still wouldn't have any other choice of best video game with no violence. So I probably still would choose Rhyme, and I probably still argue the exact same point. Now I just have a bit more knowledge about it
because you've actually played it.
I mean, like,
Tetris would be the game that I would have chosen.
Yeah.
You can't argue against the simplicity of it.
I felt really quite proud when I came up with that answer. I was like, I think I'm onto something.
Because I think the only reason
I'm a genius.
The only reason Tetris would outdo Rhyme is just like the amount you can play. Rhyme is finite, and you can't really replay it unless you want to get collectibles. Whereas Tetris, you just keep going.
Tetris is a fun, whereas Rhyme. Isn't.
Rhyme,
Shots fired.
Rhyme was entertaining. It was just that one bit of a stream where I just wanted to end the stream. I was tired, and it just kept going on.
So, week after that, we argued what is the best online multiplayer that is not a first-person shooter. So we tried to mix it up a bit there because I think that was quite a fair argument to have. The eventual winner was that me? Oh yeah, it was me.
Yeah, GTA 5.
And that was GTA 5.
Oh, was that me? Look at you.
Was that me? I know, right? And the losing answers were Warcraft 3 from John, and we had a way out from Alistair. I think, Alistair, you were really caught out by the fact that yours was sort of just a co-op game.
I hadn't played it back then.
A fantastic, honestly, obviously, because me and you played for a fantastic
youtube.com/co-op
game. But I think when we stacked up and said, actually, what one's the best online multiplayer? As co-op is a multiplayer. It's just, you're shoehorned into that experience, aren't you? When you head for an online multiplayer, it's usually a game you want to put the hours in.
So after playing it, I definitely would have chosen another answer. I mean, it's still a fantastic game, but yeah, I think.
I don't know how I argue against Warcraft 3 because I genuinely know nothing about Warcraft 3. I don't know how.
I mean, it's a good RTS, but I think GTA 5 was a deserved winner because technically not an FPS, even though you can go into first person mode now. So I mean, that could be an argument against it now.
Actually, that could have been an argument. Yeah. You guys, I never.
But I mean, it's just like the expanse and the diversity of GTA 5 now is I don't think it can be beaten. And so an online multiplayer. GTA 5's your way to go that isn't an FPS.
Do you think there's any other contenders there that we didn't touch upon?
I mean, I think there are more like in the RTS type things, and maybe now even No Man's Sky.
I mean, it's got a long way.
Yeah, I mean,
it definitely
might be worth
improvement
like a little nudge.
But the best online multiplayer I don't think
the only other thing I can think of would be an RTS. Or like,
what about like Eve Online or something? Does that have?
Yeah, stuff like that. You know, you've got
StarCraft and things like that.
Like Elite, things like that. You know, you've got a lot of. So I suppose that's still technically a first person, even though you're inside your ship, you're still first person inside a ship. That's I like shooting, so first person shooter. There we go. But yeah, we went with GTA 5, and I think that's quite a fair shout.
Enough.
I don't think there's anything to argue against that. So next one we had was the best video game that was that's set in space. So a winner for this one was Paddy, and he had a Mass Effect 2, and the losing answers were StarCraft and Dead Space. I remember this one being pretty close, actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 great answers right there.
And I think I even remember going back to it, and I think there was one point made or one thing that really swayed it towards a Mass Effect 2, which is
a soap opera in space.
Well, yeah, I think
yeah, the space opera thing.
I think that's a fair point, but I think the one that really separated it is if you took the space out of StarCraft and a Dead Space, you'd still have a good game. Like if you took StarCraft and put it on Earth, and you're still playing the same game, but it's just the you're on Earth. Or if you put a Dead Space instead of it being in a space place, it's on the ground. So you still pretty much have the same game. Whereas a Mass Effect 2, it is a space game. You can't reform that. You're flying to different planets. You've got your space crew. It's the ultimate sci-fi, a fantasy, really, isn't it? Where you look at things like Star Trek and a Firefly and Star Wars. That whole sort of building up a crew and like a ragtag bunch of reprobates. That kind of
the real that really exciting thing that you think when you think of like an epic space journey. Yeah, no, it's
and
a good game wrapped in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can all agree that Mass Effect 2 is the best of the 3 of the original series.
Yeah,
I think that's quite a fair thing to say.
It was one of our strongest debates because we actually chose 3 good space games that can be argued.
Yeah,
and have a good following.
Yeah, I think as well with the trilogy, I think it's like you got that thing. You got the balance between a really well told story and really good gameplay. And I think the first one had a very well told story, but not very fun gameplay.
Yeah.
The second one had a very well told story and really fun gameplay, and the third one had really fun gameplay, but not a good story. Yeah. You know what I mean? So. 2's like the perfect. I think we could do a Venn diagram of that if we wanted to. But anyway, I think we'll do that.
Graphics department comes back and says no.
Right. So moving swiftly on, we went for a shorter one here, and we asked what is the best game you can beat in under 5 hours. The winner for this one was John, the lovely Jonathan, and he won with the answer Battlefield 1. And the other 2 answers were Gone Home and Far Cry Blood Dragon. So how do we feel about this one?
It's a good game, yeah.
I have to admit I am not known. I am not known for holding back my opinion, and I was very upset.
Really?
on this one. Well, it's one of those ones where, I think perhaps impartiality got slipped off a little bit, because if you watch that back, John barely argued at all. He barely argued about anything.
Yeah, it's because I was reminiscing about the single player of Battlefield 1.
He said nothing bad about Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. He's barely said anything about Gone Home and Battlefield 1. And I will never quite let that go, because up until that point, although I've never once bragged, because I'm very fucking humble.
So true.
I had not lost a single debate, even in the 8-bit what debate is, or the previous version of it, the podcast, and I'd not lost a single one, and that's the only one I've lost.
Eat some humble pie, Rob.
And I just convinced you did that as a personal thing, a gripe. Or just to prove a point.
And Al and Rob have never been in the same room together since.
I know. Don't look at me.
I think that's more the restraining order than new debate.
So I'm just airing that out now, guys.
That's a tough one though, because like games under 5 hours, there are so few. Like that come to mind. it's not really it's not really like a sign of a great game, is it? If it's short, but
I think it was the right choice. It just wasn't
definitely
the right way.
It definitely was the right choice. It like when it comes down to it, when you look at all three of the games, when you look at, as soon as I knew that I was arguing against a Battlefield 1, when you sit there from, we've got this genre of game where a first-person shooter where there's, you've got all your World War IIs, you've got all your Vietnams, you've got all these heading into space, you've got all the modern boots, but World War One barely recognised and represented in any sort of way in video games, and it was so nice to see them do it and do it well, not just here's our shitty FPS where you play as a grunt guy who kills all the bad guys. They actually give a lot of thought to the individual stories that they crafted in that. And,
because also it's very like Battlefield's always like been it's a multiplayer game, and that's what it is. And that's what it came out with. And so the fact that they made the short single player but made it so well showed that they kind of knew what they were aiming for. They're like, right, we're going to be purely online, basically, but we're going to have this single player to get people get used to all the classes and all that and how things are played. But it was just done so well, and they put so much effort into making it feel like as realistic as you can get playing a World War One video game. I mean, you're not gonna be able to go, that's so real. But I mean,
I think I can absolutely agree that if you look at it outside of the arguments we had, it is a better single player game than Far Cry, a Blood Dragon.
I mean,
but
I just couldn't.
I will repeat, a Laser Dragons.
Good game.
Right. Okay. So we'll move on now, and we'll ask what it was. What is the best fantasy video game of all time? And we were more specifically looking at swords and shit. Swords and stuff.
Swords and shit,
and
bro.
Goblins and elves and stuff. Not necessarily.
Can that be a new genre?
I think it's referred to as high fantasy, not necessarily.
Hi.
A sci-fi and things like that still could be regarded as
fantasy.
But anyway, the winning answer was The Witcher 3, and that was me. And we had other answers were World of Warcraft, which I believe was from Geordie.
Yeah.
And we had a Diablo from Alistair.
Yeah.
Obviously, we did the same thing with World of Warcraft. We ripped into that and basically
as soon as I saw that come
pricing
up,
pricing model. Yeah. And a Diablo, I think I remember the main argument against that was it's
not the best in its own series.
If you look at general consensus, a Diablo 2 scene is a better and more fleshed out.
Yeah, so I think if I would have chosen Diablo 2, it would have been closer, but I think Witcher 3 still was a winner.
We really should have had someone choosing Skyrim. I thought someone was going to choose it. I thought we were going to have the Witcher 3 versus Skyrim.
I
thought we had that debate,
wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't choose it because I felt like I chose it so recently with the best video game of the decade. But looking at the list,
that's fair dues.
Yeah, looking at this as laid out, it wasn't actually that long ago. Well, it wasn't actually that many Skyrims. It just felt like we always talked about Skyrim.
Yeah, there was a while where I thought all we ever talked about was Skyrim or The Witcher 3, but actually looking at it, it doesn't look like it.
We do it that often, but no, that was one chance where I think we should have had the Witcher 3 versus Skyrim argument, and we didn't. But we did manage to get round to it, didn't we?
Yeah,
I feel like out of those three, the Witcher 3 wins, and I still stand by my answer. I think the Witcher 3 is still the best fantasy video game of all time.
Yeah, I mean, out of the three, and definitely out of the arguments, I think Witcher 3 held its own, deserved to win.
So after that, we went to the E3 live special, the first time we ever tried to do one of these shows live. I think it ran for a good 2.5 to 3 hours, which was a bit longer than we thought. We talked a lot, and you guys were absolutely exhausted at the end.
12 debates.
12 debates, all wrapped in one. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we might as well go over the last one, which was what we thought the game of the show was. We actually had 4 answers for this one. The winner was Alistair with a Ghost of Tsushima, but the other answer we had Geordie with Kingdom Hearts 3, Paddy with The Last of Us Part 2, and John with a Man-Eater on the PC. Which, to be fair, it was a good argument actually. It was a good argument, and one of those ones where when the answers were given, in the back of my head I go, this is Paddy's. You know what I mean? For what they're taking. And I remember I quickly took John and Geordie out of it and just left you two to argue it for a bit. And I think eventually Al just put a little bit more passion into it than
Yeah, but I mean, The Last of Us 2 is still definitely by far the better game of those two. Like, I mean, from a first showing, like I've never seen anything that plays like that. Like,
yeah,
just
does
nothing.
I was all over that.
That's
just. I was like, oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, I think objectively, when you look at the two, I mean, I suppose obviously again it depends what your preferences are.
Yeah.
As a gamer, I mean, like one of those things where you can't see really anyone who wouldn't be interested in what they saw in The Last of Us Part 2.
It made John buy a PS4. Like.
No, it's one of those things where for myself, I kind of hate that I didn't get into The Last of Us, even though I didn't play a huge amount of it, but I played a large enough portion to know that I was not seeing it, and I don't really understand why, because it should be a game that I love. And now I've seen The Last of Us Part 2, I'm a bit like, do I want to go back and try again and just try and work out what I missed? Because I did that before with Mass Effect, where I played the first Mass Effect, played it for a bit, and I don't really understand what the big deal is here. And then I didn't play it again. I played it again in about 5 years, and I kind of pushed through it, and eventually I go, now I get it, and then I got really into it. Perhaps I just need to do with it.
It seems stupid and like a bit maybe stretching a little bit, but now that you have a kid, it might resonate a little bit more, because that is literally what that relationship is all about. Like it's know, it's about a father and daughter and / pseudo daughter. So I don't know, maybe that would change it slightly, but
I think from my point of view, I think the main reason why I just couldn't get engaged with it was the gameplay cutscene a loop. And I'm not necessarily saying that I'm against a linear games. I'm not, because there's been loads that I've really enjoyed. It's just always felt like, and I felt like this with Uncharted as well, that you watch a cutscene, you walk into a room, you kill all the things in the room, you get a cutscene, you walk into a room, you kill everything. You know what I mean? It just felt like
literally all video games, though. Really.
Like, not really.
Run around a bit, do this quest, go run around a bit, talk to
you've got agency, you've got a variety. You know what I mean? It was just, well, for me, I wasn't getting my satisfaction from what I was doing through what felt like a player agency. I didn't feel like I had any. I felt like I was just, I mean, I got very similar with a Max Payne 3, for example. I felt very much the same. That was a beautiful game, and it was really fun to play, and all like the slow motion was all brilliant and stuff. But once that's worn off, and once you're over it, you just go in and doing the same a loop over and over, and again. And I suppose that's why I don't get on so much with the PvPs and all that kind of stuff, where you're just doing the same thing over and over again. I just feel like I need space, I need room, I need a choice, and I just didn't feel like I had any on that game. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's completely whatever you're into. I mean, like, I don't think anything story-wise, I think is probably one of the best still.
Oh,
like in terms of it's obviously easier to tell a story when you are telling your story, and there's no branching paths or anything like that.
Why it is the way it is, and why people think it's fucking brilliant. But I'm just not sure why. It should have been a game that I love, but I just
and it's one of the things I said in the argument was like, for The Last of Us, like Naughty Dog's gameplay is always just about fine. And their like stories are incredible, and the cutscenes are beautiful, and the graphics are amazing. But
it's very much the same
with the gameplay of The Last of Us Part 2. Like, that looks like just genuinely like nothing. The way she's dodging and fighting, that's just mad.
Absolutely,
can't wait for that.
Yeah,
shit.
I mean that looked a lot amazing, and obviously it's making me rethink about. Yeah. I'm gonna have to replay that, because I want to give that a go.
It almost looked next gen. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, it almost looked like something that's PS5 and not.
But overall, as someone who's not really gone through the first game and experiencing that when it comes to what I'm more excited about, Ghost of Tsushima or The Last of Us Part 2, I'm probably more excited about Ghost of Tsushima.
It does look amazing as well.
That more appeals to my playstyle,
yeah.
and the sort of games that I like to get engaged with and prefer. Anything that's if you slap like samurais on anything, I'll be playing it.
We can tell
feudal Japan,
history.
Samurais.
Yeah, so
Shenmue, I'm Yakuza.
If you do that, that's gonna speak to me quite a lot more than what's just really a compelling story of a woman and her her struggles. You know what I mean? It's like that. You know, as much as it sounds brilliant, and obviously, a Paddy, you're gonna have a brilliant experience there. That's just not what I'm trying to find. I think. Anyway, I think we've gone over that enough. But I think it could have been any of either The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, or Spider-Man. It could have been one of those three. Yeah. I think that all of those were pretty fair shouts for what was the game of the show for E3. Anyway,
but Manita should have won it. I think we can all agree.
That shark PG.
You play as a shark.
That does look amazing. So after that, we asked after we got over the live show, we asked what is the best a game to never get a sequel. So we're looking for games that were only had one version of them out. I think we allowed ones that had spin-offs and that, but apart from that, it was if you've only had a mainline entry. The winning answer was Bully, which was that answered by Geordie? I think that was Geordie.
Yeah, it would have been mine. And then, beat me to it.
Lol. And then the other two answers we had were LA Noire and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I don't fully remember who answered those two. Was that you used to?
I did LA Noire, and then we had a special guest.
Yeah.
It was James, from
James from Rather Play Games. Yeah, that was it. So how do you guys feel that one went?
I think it was well thought out. I mean,
Bully and LA Noire are very similar, right? That was
and then Everyone's Gone to the Rapture was a completely different game, so it was quite interesting to see, to hear him argue about that and how. I think he went for a different approach. I believe that instead of it should have got a sequel, but it never did. He went for this game is kind of so complete that it doesn't need a sequel. Yeah, which I think was quite an interesting way to argue it. So
it was.
Yeah, but I think it was it a walking simulator? I think it was. And that
it was, that's as soon as he said that, I was judging, and he's like, "Nope, not doing it."
That's a trigger word for me. If I hear walking simulator, I switch off, because if I want to watch a movie, I'll watch a movie. I'm not going to play a game for 6 hours.
I have nothing opposed to the walking simulator. The only frustration that I get about it, and I think we touched about this in a different debate. I think it was one a bit earlier where we had a Gone Home as an answer, where you feel like you're not experiencing a story, but you're experiencing it third hand. You know what I mean? You're always seeing, half a year ago, my brother went into the woods and never come back. It's all a bit like things that happened in the past, and it's all, I suppose it's kind of the only one of the very few ways you can experience a walking simulator, or else it's just more of a full game. But I just find watching a third hand account of something, I always sit there and go, can't I just watch it firsthand? You know what I mean?
One of my arguments against that game was there was no jog button or even something to make you move slightly faster, and it took so long to walk around. I was like, oh my god,
walk around! It literally was a walking.
In every sense
simulator, in every sense. Okay, so I think Bully's quite a fair answer.
That's a good answer.
I think that's probably, for me, I'd choose it over Eloinar anyway. I'd say it's probably a stronger game,
me too.
Stronger offering altogether. So after that, we went to what is the best video game sequel of all time. Then we had the other chat from Rather Play Games, Martin, with us on this one, and he actually won that one with the answer Mass Effect 2, which is
for the reasons I think that we kind of presented already when we talked about Mass Effect before. Halo 2 and GTA 5 it was up against. I think GTA 5 was discounted because if you look at the difference between 4 and 5, it's
there was not much.
It's bigger and it's prettier and there's more to do, but that's about it. And GTA has been the same thing for a long time. The concept
of the game is exactly the same. So
Mass Effect 2 was literally a shift, a massive shift between the first and second.
Good game.
Yeah.
I think The Witcher 3 could have given it a run for its money. I think when you look at the Witcher games from Witcher 1, 2 and 3, those are jumps. You look at The Witcher 1 and that is a different a game altogether. Even The Witcher 2, you look at The Witcher 2 and compare that to Witcher 3, the jump is unreal. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think The Witcher 3 probably would have had give a Mass Effect 2 a run for its money, but I think that would have been a hard choice.
Yeah, I put Halo 2 in there, not because it was how different it was from Halo 1.
Should have went for Halo 3.
Well, Halo 2, I think, added a lot more and kind of became a golden standard for future Halos and for future sort of shooters as well. And that's why I put it in there, because instead of it being so different from the first one, it just added so much that it's still held in high regard.
I think again, I'm going to bring it up. I think Call of Duty 4 could have possibly had a say in this as well.
Yeah,
sure.
I think that
Call of Duty for Modern Warfare.
I think the sequel one was probably one of the most open ones outside that it wasn't a decade game.
Out of those three, do we?
Yeah, definitely.
Out of those three, do we agree that's Mass Effect 2's the best of those? Yeah, definitely. And then when it comes to if we could change it for anything else, would we?
I really don't think. What else?
I mean, maybe COD 4.
Yeah, maybe COD 4 or The Witcher 3. That those are in for a shout,
definitely.
but it's hard to say, really, isn't it? Okay, right. So this one we went for a series specific thing actually because we wanted to see if we could try and promote the show a bit better. But we asked what was the worst A Legend of Zelda game. So what was the worst game in the Zelda series? This one I went up with the answer Zelda 2: The Adventures of Link. I think that's what it's called. And then we had Dylan answer with Link's crossbow training, and Alistair answering with Triforce Heroes. I do remember it was Paddy doing this one, and I think you based your choice on the point that I made, which were the other two were spin-off games. So where is your a mark of expectation, whereas Zelda 2 is a mainline a Zelda game, and for it to be, it wasn't a terrible, but it was just a misstep.
Yeah, it's funny because like
back to.
I think about it. I think like this one's the only one that I've judged where I go back and I think about it, and like I do think maybe it should have gone to Link's crossbow training. I know you guys said it was fun, but like, and I stand by why I said Zelda 2, but
the arguments on the day. But
yeah,
when
exactly.
you break it down,
I think Zelda 2 was more of a game than
to whack Link on some like little Wii game. As fun as it was, that was one of my most difficult, I think, choices.
I suppose this is it. This is the thing that I truly don't. This is my view on it, and why I'd still say that Zelda 2 is a worse game as an overall than Link's crossbow training. Is when you play a Zelda 2, and obviously I'm there are quite a lot of people who won't share this view, but there is no fun to be had. There's no fun. It's just pain. It's just like you get absolutely smashed apart. The world's ugly, and there is no redeeming part. There's only one part of it is good, and that's one of the tracks that they use. Like some of the music's pretty good. There's no fun to be had. Whereas Link's crossbow training, it's shallow and it feels like a cash in, but at least it's fun.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And you think, well, actually, what is the point? What is the point of a game if not to have like fun? You know what I mean? And I think that's ultimately why I'd still say Zelda 2 is a worse game, because there's nothing to be there. I mean, like I said, there's probably people out there who are huge fans of it and really enjoyed it and still get a huge amount of fun out of it. But for me personally, I can get a fun out of one, and I can't get fun out of the other. So I'm going to play a crossbow training, which if I had that, I would play the shit out of it. Because I think when we talked about it, I remember how much fun I had playing it. But at the same time, I can see when you look at Link's crossbow training without having played it, you go, how can this game be any good?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's not amazing. I'm not going to say it is. And then we had Triforce Heroes as well, which is a hard one to argue against, because I wasn't too sure about the online thing that you were talking about, which is a very well made point, that if people can't play it, then
it's not a good game.
It's not very much fun. It's not very much fun.
Yeah, I struggle with this one because I haven't played that many Zelda games, and obviously I couldn't pick...
drafted in at last minute as well.
I couldn't pick one of the ones that I played because they were all brilliant.
Yeah.
So I had to...
Triforce Heroes, I played through it. It is, you know what? It's one of those games where when it's working, it's really good.
I think
it's a caveats where you have to have your friends and you have to not hit any of the problems or bugs, which I didn't. But
I think that's one of the arguments that kind of took me out early on was like, as a game, it was good. Yeah. Like you couldn't argue against that as a game. It was pretty good. And then the other two as a game, you could say that they weren't great. And it was only really the connection issues and Nintendo's like infamy of just not doing online well.
Personally, if I come to this argument and a Zelda 2 was already been chosen, I probably would have either went with Skyward Sword, or I would have went with a Phantom Hourglass like that. Those aren't very popular. Those are, not many people are fans of them. So that's probably the way I would have went. But yeah, it was a hard one, I think.
Those.
And I think Paddy's still going to have a sleepless night over it. But I think, are we quite happy where that is?
I think Dylan can feel hard done by with crossbow training.
It's just one of those ones that was really close, but
I think the
ultimately I think it's probably the right choice.
Yeah, the worst two are definitely up there within there.
Yeah, definitely. I think
personal preference
I think it was
orders them, but the worst two are there.
Okay, so after that, we kind of went to what is the best video game prequel of all time. So this was a bit hard one because prequels are done in gaming, but not done as often as you think they would be. You know what I mean? If you were doing this about films, you'd have quite a lot to choose from. But when it comes to games, there's not as many as you think. But the winning answer was Yakuza 0, thank God. And the other two answers we had were Metal Gear Solid 3 and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I remember this one because I remember the first, it was Paddy took Metal Gear Solid and Dylan gave Ocarina of Time. I remember we went for Ocarina of Time straight away because it wasn't built as a prequel. It was built as an own game, and then 20 years down the line they turned it into a canon.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's a bit like story is. I think that's the reason I didn't choose it. I kind of discredited it sort of fairly early on. Was that
it's when you're saying what is the best prequel made? It's you kind of think, well, actually, the people when they set out what to make it, having an awareness of it being a prequel, just like in Metal Gear or Yakuza 0, they know the threads that they need to sow. Whereas when in Ocarina of Time, they didn't know the threads they need to sow. They just made a standalone adventure, which eventually got threaded into a wider story arc, if you will. But and then obviously when it comes to Metal Gear, I think that was a hard one actually. I remember that one. Al, I think you were judging that one. That was quite a hard choice because I was struggling to give reasons why Metal Gear Solid 3
I think
is not a
great what it is about Metal Gear is it's a prequel that's trying to answer questions for games that have come out and then answer questions for games that don't exist yet, and tie all these threads together for things that you don't even know have happened or they've happened before. Whereas Yakuza 0 is here's this game franchise we've done, let's make the beginning of it, and it's all very, very clear and down the same line. Whereas just everywhere.
The first game was set in 2005. Well, actually, it is set in 1995, and it started in 95, and then it jumps 10 years about a quarter of an hour into it, and then it's the main part of it is set in 2005. So it's basically just saying what were these people up to in 1989. You know what I mean? So it is literally a direct line, a prequel, and a very good one as well. So
I remember one point that Rob made that really kind of did sell it to me was that if you played the previous Yakuza games, you would be familiar with the area that it's set in and all the things that are going on, and Yakuza 0 takes you back to that exact same place, and you can literally walk around the place that you've now known so well and go, this is what's changed, this is where this is.
Yeah.
Whereas Metal Gear Solid,
is what this place used to look in the 80s. Yeah.
Whereas Metal Gear, and then you can pick up a few. I don't know if there are recurring characters that you see in the prequel that come in later, and you go, oh, that's what that guy was doing. Whereas I think Metal Gear Solid 3 was trying to go you almost name drop in its own franchise to kind of set it up as a prequel instead of as a game that's a prequel. It's well, let's just make it a story and build a game around it, saying this is why this guy is this and this is why this person is doing that.
Yeah, it's kind of how he became, how he became Big Boss basically. But then kind of vaguely who Big Boss is, but then
I think in games they were both very solid choices, but I think Yakuza 0 as a prequel and as a standalone game, it just made more sense.
Because Metal Gear Solid is a prequel to the 3 is a prequel to the series. You couldn't even necessarily pick a game that it's it came before these other ones, but it's not a direct prequel to the one that came after it necessarily, the one that came before it rather. It's here we're going further back in time, or we're going to a point in time in the series. I think it's the furthest back they go.
Yeah, I think a prequel. One thing that you should be kind of taken into account is if you played it in order of timeline instead of order of games, how well it would fit in. I think Yakuza 0 would work perfectly in the timeline. I think Metal Gear Solid 3 would feel disjointed from the rest of the series.
Where does it go? Yeah, no, definitely. So after that then, we went on to what a video game with a bad reputation deserves a second chance.
I'm gonna be honest, this one annoyed me.
Yeah,
I was hosting this one.
Sea of Thieves. The answer was Sea of Thieves, and the losing answer was Warframe and Titanfall 2. I think we were really hoping someone would answer a No Man's Sky, because that's probably what
No Man's Sky, For Honor, Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah, we had Siege. There's so many games that
didn't know much about the No Man's Sky update or like how it was received to kind of really argue it. So I went with something that I knew, and
No Man's Sky and every Ubisoft game.
And I think John made a very good point and kind of took mine out quite midway through by saying
have a bad
it didn't necessarily have a decent reputation, but it just wasn't known by many people, so they kind of discredited it. It didn't have a bad reputation.
It was brought out at the wrong time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they brought it out at the right time, that would have flew. I think that would have done really well. I think the campaign was known as being really good.
Campaign was good, I had a good time with that.
On top of it.
Titanfall 2 is a great game. I think I'm gonna curse myself for adding bad reputation and just not deserves a second chance. I'd
definitely say of the three, Sea of Thieves is probably the right answer.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But in terms of the question itself, definitely not Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. I think just because chose 3 wrong games.
Does it deserve a second chance? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's such a weird question to answer, because when you think about it, does it deserve a second chance? Well, personally, I don't think many games do. If you release in such a poor state, the ownership of that squarely falls on you. You know what I mean? And if you've made people fall out of love with your game because you couldn't be asked to do something and you just wanted to get it out the door, then you got to pay the consequence of that, which is people are going to lose trust in you.
I mean, I don't know why I didn't choose Destiny for that.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Like, you are the Destiny guy. Well, I was like, why did I think the Taken King changed that completely, didn't it?
Yeah, I only picked up Destiny with the Taken King DLC, so I never played.
You didn't know the vanilla Destiny was pretty bad.
It was. I'd heard things about it, but
when I was in a poor state.
Yeah, I played it as a complete game, and so I loved it from the beginning. So I was like,
no, I had it from launch, and I was like, this is empty. It's boring.
Yeah. Okay, well, to be fair, I think we can all agree Sea of Thieves is the right answer of those three, but what the right answer is probably quite a hard one, because the question itself is quite hard, isn't it? When you start to get your head around it, because do you choose a game that is now known as being pretty good, but just needs the people to get back on board, or are we saying actually this game, everyone says it's bad, but it's not as bad as what people say it is? You know what I mean? It's like, what are you trying to argue there? That's what I'm trying to get my head around even now. But anyway, I think we can put it behind us. It's out.
We did it.
Published. We did it. So finally, that brings us to our most recent debate, and that was what is the best survival horror game? Just full disclosure, I haven't actually watched this one yet, so I don't know. But the winning answer was the Resident Evil remake. Losing answers were Silent Hill and Alien
I think it was
Isolation.
Silent Hill 2 was the actual game, because John said Silent Hill, but then he went more specifically Silent Hill 2. So
I'd probably, if I was going to best survival horror game, I'd probably lean on the Silent Hill series before I'd go to the Resident Evil series. That's just me personally.
I would have gone for Alien Isolation actually as the best survival horror, because
really?
In terms of horror, I think the other two you can play multiple times and it loses that effect, but Alien Isolation would keep like the horror, because it doesn't run one single path. It changes. It like adapts to how you play, and so
I suppose it's one of those things. Is obviously you're saying there. Alien Isolation has a higher replayability factor than a Silent Hill or Resident Evil. But then again, a Call of Duty Infinite Warfare has more replayability than I like The Last of Us, but it's a shitter game.
Yeah, but then you go into like the story and sort of how things go. But I think like in terms of survival horror, because it's in the genre. Like horror has to be an aspect of it, and I don't know.
Definitely. I think Silent Hill,
Resident Evil and Silent Hill 2 wouldn't do much with me. Like I wouldn't be like, really spooky.
Man, I like Silent Hill, man. Like some of the things they did in that game were freaky as shit.
I've only seen the movie, never played the games.
Yeah, like the games, like some of the things they did with tone and atmosphere. I mean, you saw the way it was going if you ever played on the PT trailer thing that they released that Kojima was going for. I think Silent Hill
PT was scary.
I wouldn't put Silent Hill in the same I know a lot of people put it in the same category as a Resident Evil, which obviously through time went to a more action oriented, and then obviously in its most recent one went sort of back to its horror roots. But Silent Hill, from the ones I've played anyway, has always stayed firmly into the horror part of it, not drifting towards the action, and they've always been just absolutely haunting to play, and a real trial to get through. Whereas I think Alien Isolation, and I do see your point that obviously the Alien is, there's loads of things I like about that game that I love. I like the designs of it, like how it looks quite like the Notre Dame from the first Alien film. I like that you've only got one alien. There's not a crew of them, and
you can't really do too much to it.
You can't do anything about it. It just moves in random patterns where you there's no two playthroughs that you would have in the same way. I totally see. Pardon me. Why it's in the conversation, but for me, by the fact that you've only got that one threat, you've got that only constant one threat. You get to a certain point where it no longer turns into a threat because you learn how to manage it.
Yeah.
Whereas Silent Hill, the different freaky shit that game throws at you to try and just make you feel ill, like you got, and I always think back. I don't remember exactly which Silent Hill it is or whether it is a recurring theme throughout the series, but I always remember the radio, a white noise thing where you've got this little thing that just makes a general humming, and when it gets louder, it means there's something creepy nearby, and that. Fucking
But I mean, there were a lot of games I feel that were missed in this franchise, and I think people went more towards a horror game than survival horror. So things like State of Decay, 7 Days to Die, Dead Island. Even
could you have argued that though?
I mean, I would have argued 7 Days to Die.
I mean, the reason that Resident Evil won it, and Torgy Bear he was a guest, he won it, is because it was almost the beginning of the survival horror genre. It was that kind of. Yeah. It's the granddaddy of all of these games. I think that's how we sold it. That's how we sold it to me.
That we've had this before, haven't we? Where just because it's the first doesn't necessarily mean. It's
the
best,
but it was based purely on what was said.
The innovation
said in the room.
Definitely. I think if I was to look at this and say which three of these games are the best, I'd say Silent Hill 2. That would be my first instinct. But
I don't really play survival horror, but I would have gone Resi 4. Resident Evil 4 was creepy as shit.
I think this one is definitely one of them. Was definitely up in the air. All of us would have picked a different answer.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been any of them.
I think it was
okay.
A bit more open one.
So have we got them all written down now?
Did we miss?
We missed the best sequel of all
best
time.
Video game with only a single player.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I did. I bet.
The best video game with only single player. Yeah,
I think
I do. I missed one.
It was the only
the three strongest answers.
Yeah, what was the best video game with only single player? We had the winner of that was The Witcher 3, which I believe was Paddy's answer. The losing answers were Skyrim and Ocarina of Time.
Those are three ridiculously good games.
Yeah, that's a strong argument I think we had there.
I remember I knocked out Ocarina of Time for some reason, but I can't remember why. I think it was just the way it was being argued at the time, and then The Witcher 3 and Skyrim.
I think it was replayability.
Went head to head, didn't they, for a little bit?
I think.
Remember that?
Yeah, I think it was Ocarina of Time was taken out because out of those three, Skyrim and The Witcher 3 just had a lot more to it than Ocarina of Time, which compared to the other two seems quite condensed and forced in where you go.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how
it's constrained by the technology at the time.
It's what you just said, Robert. Do you go with the one that was the original, or what is seen as one of the one that started it, or the ones that have perfected it,
refined? Yeah, definitely. It's a hard one to choose, and I think it depends more on the argument of the day. I mean, I think if we were to ask this question again, and if I was to ask, I would still probably give the answer to The Witcher 3. Yeah. What's the best video game player with only single player?
Yeah, I think it can be a toss-up between Witcher 3 and the Skyrim on personal preference.
I feel like you struggled, Al, a little bit to come up with, because you were like, but the combat mechanics, and I was like, but you're arguing for Skyrim, Al.
Yeah, I know. It's one
really
of those things where
the
one drawback of The Witcher 3 is the combat is not that good. Let's be honest, as much as the stories and the setting and the sense of place and all the characters are absolutely spot on, the combat of The Witcher 3 is quite boring and quite dull, and it's a bit like, oh, here we go again. But the reasoning why you're fighting, the reasoning why you're doing the stuff you're doing, a tick list, a nature of it all, and all of that just really brings in players, and then you start to forgive it for its shortfalls. To argue that point when your choice is Skyrim, you just got not got leg to stand.
Someone had the nerve.
The one
to
weakness
Skyrim.
of The Witcher 3 is a big weakness in the Skyrim series. You know that I mean, The Witcher 3 is not necessarily a very well polished game. There's still quite a lot of bugs now. Like if you guys ever tried to use the horse in it, it's fucking horrible.
I haven't actually played The Witcher 3.
Yeah, you should. You really should, mate. It is top class.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that. We all know that. But someone had the nerve to attack Skyrim with it was a walking simulator based on the fact that I just like to pick up all my cabbages.
Cabbages.
Cabbage.
Oh, cabbage.
So, ladies and gentle folks, do you think we're wrapped up here in this video that we tried to think of, and it's taken us a lot more time than we thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I think,
we actually genuinely appreciate
we've done all right.
We genuinely
instead of like us actually getting critical about what we pick, it just turned into a conversation about the winners and losers.
Well, we can have a bit of a convo, can't we?
It's a nice little chill, Mike. We can be friends once.
But I want to be genuinely thankful for anyone who's managed to make it to the end of this video, because it's been quite a long one, and just for us to talk about our show and talk about the previous things that we have asked and argued over. It's nice to be able to talk about them in a more open and upfront area, because it's weird when you're arguing, you find yourself arguing against games that you love, and it's kind of like it's very hard to do that, and I think sometimes we kind of have to gloss over it, but it's nice to have a bit of upfrontness every now and again. So perhaps we should do this again in when we've got another.
Yeah, because a lot of the time when a question appears, it's basically who can get the best answer first.
yeah,
and then you're like,
no. The one they think they're gonna win.
Yeah, and that happens so often. It's like you're arguing against games you love, and you argue games you don't have much idea about. In my case, most of the time.
That's how it goes. This is the breakneck nature of our show.
I mean, we don't always have all the right answers. So if there's anything in all those games that we missed, like put them down in the comments. We'll get around to them, I'm sure.
We shall do that. We shall ask people to put things in the comments, because that drives up our engagement and therefore gives us more of the internet.
Engagement.
I want all the internet.
I want a larger slice of the internet.
Cut me a slice of that internet pie.
So if you are ever interested in sort of engaging with the show, we have a Discord server, which you'll find in the description below. In there you can make suggestions for questions that we do in the future, or indeed vote on polls for any questions that we do in the future. We've got all sorts of stuff and hilariousness heading up in there. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button and all the other stuff. And if you've got any thoughts about anything, put them in the comments and we will probably respond when we get around to it. And I think that's it. Have you guys got anything else that you want to add?
Just thank you for putting up with us.
Yeah, I mean, putting up with our shenanigans.
Thank you. Well, we really appreciate it. We probably don't say thank you enough to the.
Al, shush! I know, but bless Al. You tries to talk so much. Now, fuck off, Al. Al, you had something to say. Please tell the lovely people what you had to say, and then we're off.
Why do I have such a long outro? It's the only time I get to fucking talk around you lot.
And thank you, Al. And this has been the video. We'll see you guys for the normal show next Wednesday. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.